Right on. Welcome back to my little channel here. And yeah, my name is Ben, and today we're going to be going over how to make, paint, and set up barbed wire. Model barbed wire, of course. This is 1/35th scale, but these same methods can apply to really almost any scale. So yeah, and before I do get started, I did want to mention that if you enjoy this video and you learn something new, then make sure to like or whatever if you'd want. It lets me know that you did learn something. And if you want to see more of my content, then as always you can subscribe. But in any case, thank you for clicking on this link and or on this video, and I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, also I just want to say that for the last few days I've been a little unwell, and I've been feeling a bit unwell, and school and everything is a bit overwhelming. So sorry if this video isn't like as energetic or whatever as I try to make them, but yeah, so this might be a bit of a calmer and maybe even slower paced video than my other ones. So yeah, but in any case, I hope you enjoy the video, and yeah, that's it. Right, so this first method that I'm going to show you is it's sort of cheating, I guess, since we're not actually really making anything. But it is a lot easier to do, and it's less time consuming, and in my opinion it's also a lot more realistic than the other method I'm going to show you. But basically we're going to be using this stuff, and this is I got this from War World Scenics, not World War Scenics, War World. And it was under the name of 5 meters of hyper-realistic razor wire. I got it off of Amazon for €5, €5 if I remember correctly. So it's not super expensive. Don't get me wrong, but it's a tad bit more expensive than the other method. Now you can also find the same product labeled as double wrapped security wire. It's literally the same thing. It's just it's basically a lot stronger when you have this wrap, because basically what it is, it's one thicker wire wrapped around with a much thinner wire. So it's very strong and sturdy. So yeah, you can find this also under the name of double wrap security wire. Just an FYI. Now, the other method I'm going to be showing you, much cheaper, but like I mentioned, it's a bit less, realistic, and it's a lot more time consuming. So here I have all-purpose steel wire. I have no idea what the diameter is. I'm gonna guess somewhere around the 0.8 millimeters, maybe a tiny bit less. I would even recommend you go with something thinner, but this is what is available to me. So I got a spool like this for, if I remember correctly, 20 cents at my hardware store. So it's super cheap, and it's pretty easy to get your hands on it. You can get it anywhere. So yeah, I'm going to show you how I turn this into something similar to this. So yeah, let's get to it. First, I'm going to show you this sort of setup that I have here. Here's my workspace, as you can see. Very messy, I know, sorry. But here's the door, right, and I've gotten my wire, and on the open ends, I've wrapped them together on about let's say about an 8 or 10 centimeter length, just so that I know it will not unravel as I'm pulling hard on it. and I've wrapped it a few times here just to keep it in place. And so here you can see this is not where the ends are. It's all one piece. So I'm going to set you guys up so that you can see what I'm actually doing. Right, so this is me. Hello. If you didn't know what I look like. Right, so I'm gonna grab my wire. I'm hoping that it's not too invisible on the camera. But as you can see, I have a barbecue skewer right here. Alternatively, you can use a pencil or a pen. And basically, I'm just gonna put this in here, and I'm gonna wrap it a few times just so that it sort of like stays in place, you know. And all I'm gonna start doing is I'm just gonna twist, and it takes a while for it to actually sort of take shape as if it's twisting on a smaller level, or that it's like visible that it's twisting. So again, this is a super time-consuming process, and I found that earlier on in my days of modeling, where this was the main method I stuck to for barbed wire, I found myself just making this stuff in the living room while watching TV, you know, something like that. It's mess-free, so why not? But it does take ages, and it's very boring, so I'm afraid I have to cut the camera. I'm going to put a show on while I do this, and remember, I'm doing this for you guys. I'm doing this for the guys that have a lower budget, because usually I would not do this, and I would spend my Friday night doing something a bit more productive than most 15-year-olds are doing. Anyways, so yes, farewell. Alright, so as you can see, it's been about, not too long actually, about 30 minutes for this length of wire. This is about maybe 90 centimeters, something like that. And if I can get the camera nice and close, you can see it is not wanting to focus. You can sort of, hopefully, yeah, there we go. You can see the sort of, I guess, consistency that the twist is at, and you know, it's yeah, it's that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut it not all the way at the edge here, because this is a bit more tightly wrapped. I'm gonna cut it where the consistency starts, so right around here, I'd say. And then on this edge, I'm gonna cut it where, also again where the consistency starts, so probably around here. So yeah, I'm gonna cut that and show you guys sort of the finished thing, and we'll get to building emplacements for it. Right, so as you can see, we're back at the workbench here, and I have the two different types of wires. Now this is the one that we sort of made, I guess. And as you can tell, it's, for some reason, it almost looks less detailed than the other one. Let me try and get it close to the camera. And I think, yeah, I don't particularly know why that is. I think this one is just more spaced out, whereas this one sort of, when you look at it from afar, just it sort of looks like one thick piece of wire, you know. So for the rest of this demonstration, I'm going to continue with this wire. However, if you do opt for this one, just know that it's the exact same process as everything else. So yeah. So I'm going to get onto the sort of construction of the emplacements that we're going to do for these for this wire. Now, you're going to want to have something to wrap these around. Now, I have no idea what diameter this is. I really don't know. But for reference, I guess this is this is Vallejo airbrush thinner, and it's the cap. Yeah, so do keep in mind that the sort of spirals that you're going to get are going to be much larger than the actual diameter of this sort of circle, but whatever. Anyways, so what we're going to do is we're just going to grab these sections of wire and we're going to wrap it around and very tightly, wrap it very tightly. And FYI, this section of wire is 40 centimeters long, so I find that to be a decent length, but you are going to need multiple of them. So as you can see, it's a little big. Of course, have your 1/35 scale figure, as I always do, just for reference of size. And as you can see, it's a little too big, but that's fine. We can sort of shape it with our fingers, or with our hands, sorry, and make it much smaller. So really, it doesn't make a massive it doesn't make a massive difference, like what the diameter is of the circular object that you use. Just as long as you get that sort of spiral shape and you're able to form it better with your fingers or hands. So this is roughly a good size, and again, just get your figure for scale, and yeah, this is roughly good. You can always tweak it, and yeah, it's fine. So yeah, I'm gonna make a few of these, and yeah, show you guys once I'm finished. So here you can see I've finished the coils, and I made 4 coils for 2 emplacements. And I started painting them, and as I do with most of my models, I started with a black primer. This was a acrylic polyurethane primer by Vallejo. And yeah, pretty easy, pretty simple. And then yeah, afterwards I went on to paint it with a base coat, which will come in a sec. Right, then I started painting it with a base coat, which was the color was made up of red, yellow, burnt umber, and black. So sort of a dark rust, and it really didn't make a huge noticeable difference in the color, but just enough to sort of give it that base rust coat. Sorry. And later on we'll be sort of enhancing the colors a bit and making it more, well, yeah, rusty. Right, so as you can see, I have my my barbed wire coils here, and I'm trying to get it closer to the camera. You can see it has a nice color, very noticeable, very not very noticeable, sorry, but there is sort of a dark rust tone there. So yeah, you could leave it here if you felt like it, but of course that's a bit boring. So I'm gonna try going a bit beyond that. Now, as you can see, I have set up here 3 different colored paints. This is a dark rust, a light rust, and a sort of medium rust. These are all super cheap acrylic paints, and unfortunately I can't really tell you exactly what colors they are, as they're from I made them actually from my pre-YouTube days. So I have these 2 pre-made mixtures that are just yeah, fluorescent orange paint and red, yellow, white, black, whatever. But that's beside the point. You can make your own mixtures. Basically what we're gonna do, I have some pieces of sponge here, and just to prepare it, you can sort of tease at it with your fingers, sort of pull some of the sponge out. And I'm just gonna grab one of these coils here, and just to add some interest, some visual interest, and sort of change the color up a little bit. I'm gonna do similar to the sponge chipping technique. I'm gonna put a little bit of paint on my sponge, and really take most of it off. And then I just lightly dab it in some areas on my coil. And I guess this isn't necessarily the most realistic, but it is the most visually interesting effect. It sort of makes it so that it's not all uniform, you know? And you just do this with all your different colors, and it's a pretty easy step, which, you know, we're all about easy. And it's quite nice, you know? Add some color variations without making it like pop out and sort of scream at you, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'm just gonna do some of this and with all three tones, and it's the same for all three tones, and I'll show you guys once I've finished. Very simple process, but highly rewarding as usual. Right, so now as you can see, I've finished the barbed wire, and you know, it doesn't have that crazy wow factor, but it's better than the original you know, sort of one-toned base coat that we had. So, you know, oh well. And because this paint was also really sticky for some reason, I also went over it with a matte varnish, and that seems to help quite a bit. So yeah, there's that. And now that we have that done, we're going to start with the actual construction of how we're going to set these up. So without further ado, I'll get on to that. So I'm starting with some barbecue skewers and cutting them to 3.5 centimeter length, and I made 8 of these for 2 different emplacements. And then I also for 2 different emplacements, I grabbed for each emplacement a single skewer and cut it to pretty much the same length as our coils. And then to make sort of crosses with those 3.5 centimeter sections, I just grabbed some very, very fine string and sort of stringed it together to make it sturdy, but not so sturdy. You know, back in the day, they wouldn't spend ages on making these, so I didn't really either. And you just sort of do what you can, put it together. And then to officially fix it in place, I use some modeling glue. You can use Tamiya extra thin. I used Revell glue and just fix it in place with a brush. And then similar to what I did with those crosses, I'm doing the same with these long poles here. I'm just attaching them to the crosses with string, and there will be one cross on each side of the rod, and again fixing in place with glue, and it works well. Yeah. Now, moving on to painting the actual thing, I gave sort of a messy coat of 50% burnt umber and 50% light brown, and I didn't really know what color exactly I was going for, just that I wanted it a bit darker than it was. And to darken it down even more, I went over it with a pretty heavy black oil wash. So just black oil paint with white spirit, pretty simple. So now that we have our sort of emplacements for our well, you know, barbed wire, the oil wash doesn't necessarily have to be dry, but it will dry pretty quickly as it sort of soaks into the wood. So, you know, yeah, that. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually put these coils on the emplacements, and the first coil is always the easiest. What I like to do is just sort of twist it on and sort of push it and twist it and do whatever, and it sort of works itself out, you know. It's pretty much 50% of this hobby for me, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, so just gotta manage to get it good on both sides, and bam, like that, we have it, and it looks pretty cool right now. But we're gonna add another coil to, like I mentioned, give a sort of messy effect. And no, not the football player. So this second coil is going to be really difficult. If you have the homemade barbed wire that I showed earlier, it will be a lot easier, but it will be a lot less realistic. So I'm just gonna like fast forward this, and yeah.
So yeah, like I mentioned, this part is pretty hard actually. It's mainly because the sort of thinner wire that's wrapped around the thicker wire keeps getting caught on other parts of the wire, if that makes sense. So it sort of stops itself, and sometimes you also have to, it sort of changes the size a little bit, so you have to sort of tweak that as you go. But generally, to get this coil on one of the emplacements in place, it took me about 15 minutes, I'd say. So it's not horrible, but it's, you know, it's not that fun either.
Okay, well, with that finished, that sort of concludes the video. You can see for scale, it's quite a nice size, and they're nice and messy, and yeah, I just like this effect, and it really sometimes it can really add a nice detail to your terrain, for military terrain, of course. And stay tuned for next video. I'm not sure if that's gonna come out next week or the week after. Like I mentioned, school's been really busy, and just got a lot of stuff going on, so we'll have to see if I manage to make the deadline next week, because it's really it's gonna be a big video. But yeah, so stay tuned for that video to see me sort of place these on my terrain and see how they look in use. Because yeah, like I mentioned, they're a great detail, and I love this effect. So yeah, if you watched all the way to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. I love you, as always. And yeah, if you learned something new, you can like if you'd like. And you know, if you're new and want to see more of my content and help me grow as a page, as always, you can always subscribe. But in any case, I'm just glad that you clicked on the video, and I hope you enjoyed the video. So yeah, that's it, and yeah, just have a great day. Farewell.